Hello, faithful viewers. This is Juan Montoya, reporter, editor, and publisher of the online newspaper El Run Run, a blog, if you will. We continue our interviews with local political candidates to the various positions. Today, we welcome current Cameron County Judge Eddie Treviño, who has graciously accepted our invitation to address our audience. Judge Treviño is an attorney and previously served as mayor of the city of Brownsville. Welcome, Judge.
Good afternoon, Juan. Thanks for having me.
Judge, you're seeking re-election to your second term in office and are facing Republican Carlos Cascos, a challenger that you defeated before in 2018. Can you tell us what has happened in the last 4 challenging years of a COVID-19 devastated economy here and across the United States? How has the county fared under your watch?
I think if we're objective and try to be as fair as we possibly can, I'd have to say that the county is actually in better shape today than it was 4 years ago. And that's saying something considering what we've been through. No one could have ever predicted that we'd be hit with a global pandemic and be hit in a way that was unexpected and we really weren't prepared for. And the administration at the time, downplayed it, making it harder on local governments to do what was needed. Never would I have thought that my decisions would have such a potential life and death consequence. It's been interesting, obviously, these last 4 years. At the height of COVID, that summer of 2020, when we were the hot spot, the valley was a hot spot in the entire country, we also get hit with a hurricane. Thank God it wasn't a devastating hurricane, but there was still, water and some damage. And I remember telling, the governor at the time that we knew how to walk and chew gum down here in Cameron County. We didn't just have to deal with a pandemic. We were dealing with natural disaster. But I have to give credit where credit is due. I got elected 6 years ago to finish out Mr. Casco's term that he quit on Cameron County, and won against him in 2018. In those 6 years, what I've tried real hard to do, and I give credit where credit is due, as I said, is work with our county commissioners, all 4 precinct county commissioners, to make sure that we're all working as a team. And COVID really helped accelerate or confirm that positive working relationship that we were developing. There have been very few and far between what I would call divisive issues. Literally, all of our votes are almost unanimous. Maybe there's an abstention here and there. And even when there is a disagreement, we usually are able to have a fair and reasonable discussion and do what's best for the residents of Cameron County. So I'm proud of that. COVID-19 was hard to deal with. As I started to say, never did I think that my decision would have such a potential impact on life and death. But when this all started, I realized that I needed to be as prepared and informed as I possibly could. So I right away started talking with the health professionals locally, statewide, even some nationally. I started talking with the hospital administrators, the doctors, the nurses, the health professionals. Started talking to the educators, the people involved in public health. Our health department, second to none. Our emergency management department that I head, second to none. Our county personnel, our county administrators, the commissioner's court. I mean, we all came on board. We came together knowing that we had to do the best we could possibly do to save lives. I know some people have criticized me or continue to criticize me, thinking that I had some pleasure or gained some advantage or benefit by making very difficult decisions, especially early on. But in speaking to everyone, we weren't sure where this was going to take us. I think if the president at the time had really taken this seriously, as opposed to concerned that it may make him look bad, as opposed to worrying about saving American lives or lives around the world, really, I think a lot fewer people in our country would have lost their lives. We're over 1 million here in this country. Here in the county, over 2,300. Those 2,300 lives are people that I'm going to worry about and live with, say, what else could we have done to try to save those lives? So that's something I've got to live with. But I also know that we did everything we possibly could. And many people, professionals, have told this commissioner's court, had we not acted the way we did, a lot more people could have lost their lives. Unfortunately, here in the Valley, as Hispanics, Latinos, Mexicanos, we have a propensity to certain conditions: diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure. Those pre-existing conditions, in conjunction with a brand new virus that we had never seen, unfortunately, we saw was killing more people quickly because their immune compromised, or these pre-existing conditions made them more susceptible to serious illness or even death. So that summer, when we didn't have a vaccine and we were still trying to figure out what to do, what worked? History, going back to the time of the Bible, of the biblical age, masks. Masks, work better than not having masks. Avoiding people who are sick works better than being around people. We started learning words like social distancing and essential employees and all of these things, trying to figure out how do we keep people working while at the same time not putting them at risk. HEB personnel became essential employees because they were providing the food on the shelving for you and I and our families. I would rather be accused of doing too much to save lives than having not done enough to save lives. So that criticism I can certainly live with. Economic development, relationships on a bipartisan basis. If anybody's going to work with me to help move a project forward, whether he or she's a Democrat or Republican, I'm going to work with them. I may not agree with them on certain issues, but my responsibility once I'm elected is to serve the over 500,000. You and I both know that there's probably more like 600,000 or 700,000 people who live in Cameron County, not the 420 that the census tells us. We lost out on a huge opportunity. When I first got elected in 2016, I was looking forward to making sure that we did great on the census. But what did you have? You had an administration saying, we need to only count citizens. Well, that obviously is not the way a census is supposed to work. And two, it scared a lot of people that you and I both know that live in the shadows because they may not have the proper documentation. And it kept us from being, and then you throw in COVID that summer, we couldn't go door to door. We couldn't have, community events the way we were planning. We had been working on this for 3-4 years, and everything went by the wayside. So according to the census, we grew by 15,000 and from 2010 to 2020, and that's totally bogus, totally bogus. But I think the trajectory that we're on, the development of SpaceX, they changed. It was supposed to be a launch facility. They were going to launch the Falcon 9 and launch satellites once a month. It went from that to a full-blown research, testing, production, and research facility. All of a sudden, we start building the actual spaceship. The next era, the next decade, or the next generation of spaceships is going to take us, hopefully, back to the moon and to Mars. And you got the richest guy in the world invested now in our community. So a project that was going to generate 200 jobs is up to over 1,800 direct SpaceX jobs, plus thousands more indirect jobs, billions invested in our area. SpaceX helped get us through the pandemic on an economic basis.
So the county has fared well
under
the time that you've
I think, objectively speaking, I think it's fared very, very well.
Very good. Judge, we live in a political environment, and as such, criticism is to be expected. But the level of criticism at both the professional and personal level has gone beyond the normal bounds, often bordering on personal attacks upon you. Your opponent has come just short of accusing you of crimes in the performance of your legal profession, specifically as it relates to the Brownsville Public Utility Board Tanasca electric plant project. Could you please address these accusations and assure us that everything your law firm did was on the up and up?
Absolutely, Juan, and thank you for the question. And I think he has probably accused me of criminal conduct. I don't think he's walked up to the line either. He and his supporters have done that. It's unfortunate that this so-called audit report was released a month before the election, and it is. While I have not read it page to page, I have looked at it. It's a 70-page report, and I think I mentioned 3 times from October of 2012. To October and November of 2017. Approximately 5 years, I served as PUB's general counsel. Back in 2012, my former law firm, Treviño and Bowden, was selected among different firms after presentation to the board of directors at PUB. Now, we were only a two-man firm, a two-person firm. So the question they had was, are you going to be available for the work that we need you to do? And at the time, they were starting to gear up work on the Tenasca generating plant. And I made the commitment. If I'm hired, I will be available to you guys basically 24/7. And that's exactly what happened. The Tenasca project took a great majority of my time. I understand that when somebody hears of 1.2 or 1.89 million, that sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But lawyers work and are paid for their time and their services, their professional services. I bill for my time. I would never not bill for something that I didn't do. And I was swamped. I was busy doing PUB work during those 5 years. The other thing that's interesting is that this particular audit report, where like I said, I think I mentioned in 3 or 4 paragraphs throughout the entire, much of it is just pure conjecture, just pure speculation, making assumptions like, why was he involved in the work on Tenasca when there were 6 other law firms involved? Well, I was a general counsel. The board, the administration had me basically corralling and being involved and engaged in all aspects of the project. I was not a specialized utility counsel. They've had their own utility counsel since 1970. So obviously I did look to them, but I was the orchestra leader, if you will, trying to coordinate things. My opponent is a CPA. As far as I know, CPAs bill for their time and their professional services. I wouldn't criticize him. I know he does audits for school districts and cities. He's been doing it forever. That's what he does as a professional. So I find it disingenuous, almost hypocritical, that he and some of his supporters have tried to make an issue out of my work. We've had this summer, huge increases in gas and oil and inflation. All of our prices have gone up. Everybody's seen their electricity bills gone up, not just PUB. But PUB being the locally owned municipal electric provider is getting a lot of the attention. Unfortunately, the Tenasca project, didn't work out because right after they started the project, well, they discovered oil at the Eagle Ford Shale. So there was an abundance of gas that was developing over there, and they weren't able to sell the rest of the power that was going to be generated. But imagine where we would be right now if we had our own natural gas plant generating electricity here in Brownsville, here in Cameron County, here in the Rio Grande Valley. When we had that freeze, we may not have been as impacted as severely. And one of the issues that's popped up since I was mayor, and even before and continues to this day, is when new industry, a steel plant, a steel mill that wants to come, the first thing they ask is, do you have enough power to supply us for our plants? And it's been a problem. We have had that shortage. It's gotten better. We've gotten new connections, new transmission power. But, had it worked, it would have been great. It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that it didn't.
We have addressed the past and the present. Could you lay out your vision for the future of our county and its residents? What can we look forward to if we re-elect you as our Cameron County Judge?
Juan, I think this obviously it's a good follow-up to your earlier question. One of the projects that I got engaged in right after I was after re-elected 4 years ago, and before that, was working on the merger of the 3 MPOs, the Metropolitan Planning Organizations, Brownsville, Harlingen, San Benito, and Hidalgo. The state had said, if you guys could get together, make one valley-wide MPO, you'll be in a better position to be qualified and eligible for more transportation dollars. If we did that, we would become the 5th largest MPO. Working with community leaders, elected leaders here in Cameron County and in Hidalgo, we got that done, and now we have one valley-wide MPO. I served as a vice chair, and now I'm serving as the chairman. In the last 3 years, the commitment from TxDOT for valley-wide projects went from $500 million in transportation to over $2 billion now, just in that short period of time frame. So when you ask me, what do we look forward to for the future? That's, first of all, I'm proud of that accomplishment, but more importantly, what it means going forward. The East Loop project, the removal of 18-wheeler truck traffic from Los Tomates, used to be Gateway, now Los Tomates, through our neighborhoods here in Brownsville. That East Loop project has been around since before I was mayor. I'm proud to say that now we've got that on the 10-year plan and the initial funding to get started with regards to that, so that the truck traffic goes directly to the Port of Brownsville. We've expanded the commercial lane travels at Los Tomates at Veterans Bridge. We've installed X-ray machines to allow the trucks to move faster and not be as delayed when they're crossing over. We've got plans to expand Los Indios Bridge. This morning, we received notification that the GSA has already approved the design plan for the renovation and remodeling of Gateway Bridge. You and I call it the new bridge. Everybody calls it the new bridge, but it hasn't been touched since it was inaugurated under the Eisenhower administration. So these transportation projects, and then probably the biggest regional project, which is the Second Causeway. We knew back before 2001, when the causeway collapsed with that unfortunate tragic accident, that the island needed another access. Well, here we are 20 years later still working on it, but I'm proud to say that in working with the RMA and working with South Padre Island, each of us and the county each committed $1 million to get the environmental study done. And as part of the Second Causeway, there'll be a new state highway from the causeway all the way to Edinburgh, so that our friends in Hidalgo can get to the island in 35, 40 minutes, as opposed to the hour and 50 minutes that it's taken right now. That is truly a regional project. The LNGs are this close to making their final financial decision. We anticipate that happening before the end of this year. Depending on how many phases they develop, that investment will be anywhere from $9 billion to up to $18 billion. And that's just with one of the LNGs. The total appraised value for Cameron County is approximately 24 billion. So this one project could be anywhere from 1/4 to over 1/2 of our current appraised value. The hope there, obviously, is that we're going to be able to be generating enough property taxes to finally start looking at having enough to do what we want, plus also lowering our tax rate, making us even more attractive for economic development. The expansion of the port, the investment that we've made in our parks, over $60 million, the amphitheater, the South Texas Ecotourism Center. All of these are projects that we've done. Obviously, some of them we're in the process of working towards, and I'm hopeful that based upon the work that we did during COVID, based upon the work that we've done in infrastructure and parks, we've increased the salaries of our county employees. We made sure that the lowest paid, which was approximately in the $8 to $8.50 raise, we got them to a living wage at $10, and now we raised it again this year to over $11, so that our lowest paid employees are in the $11.50 raise, plus benefits. We've invested over $15 million to our county employees because prior administrations never addressed that, and we have to be mindful of the fact that our county employees, from the lowest paid to the highest paid, they're quality individuals, and they're committed to serving the county. So we'd obviously like to be able to do more. We've kept the same tax rate for the last 4 years. In spite of the pandemic, for the last 2.5, almost 3 years, we've kept the same tax rate. And I know that appraisals have gone up. The appraisal district is the one responsible for the appraisal increase, but those increases mean that we're on the right track. Unfortunately, it's caused a lot of problems for some people, but a lot of people have also benefited from the increase in property values. And hopefully the growth in subdivisions and property development will expand our property tax, so that way it helps all of us, more and more jobs, better paying jobs, something that we've been looking forward to for generations.
We thank County Judge Treviño for his participation in our efforts to inform voters of his views and his candidacy for re-election.
When someone gives me their vote and supports me, and I'm asking to serve as a public official, I take that honor and that privilege very seriously. I had opportunities to potentially run for other offices over this past year, but I thoroughly enjoy being Cameron County Judge, and I'd be honored to serve for another 4 years. I hope that I've earned that opportunity and the respect, and I can guarantee you that if I am reelected, I plan on serving the entire 4 years and not looking at any other positions.
And we remind you that early voting ends November 4th, and the general election is November 8th. Please vote.
Thank you, Juan.